What if Anakin died on Mustafar and trained Luke as a Force ghost? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Anakin's entire body burns as he struggles to crawl through the rocky ground of Mustafar. Fire laps at his legs and spreads across his body, leaving him with nothing but pain. He glares up at Obi-Wan, snarling as he turns and leaves him there. The only thing Anakin feels at that moment is pain and anger, the only things that urge him on. But as he crawls desperately on the ground, he sees a faint light in the distance that grows closer by the second. The light is nearly blinding as the lava envelops him, but there is no pain. Instead, its glow is warm and inviting, and Anakin finds a figure standing before him. Qui-Gon offers a kindly smile and holds out his hand. Slowly, Anakin takes it, and the pain around him vanishes. But as he leaves this world behind, the entire galaxy suffers, from the citizens who watch the rise of the Empire to his wife who experiences the pain of childbirth until it becomes too much for her. Anakin can feel this pain and trembles, but the sight of his children fills him with a new purpose, and he realizes what he must do. Years later, Luke stumbles across the rocky ridge under the orange hues of the twin suns that begin to set. His heart is pounding as a swirl of emotions run through him, all caused by the voices in his head. It sounds like static on a holodisk. It's been there as long as he can remember, tugging at his mind and directing his actions. Everyone on Tatooine thinks he's strange. The only person who shows any understanding is old Ben Kenobi, who spends hours telling Luke about the Force. Although he's not sure why, those tells always help Luke feel at ease, though he never tells this to old Ben for fear of driving him away.
Why won't they stop?
The ridge is silent, but for the faint whistle of the wind threading through the crags. Luke takes a deep, shaky breath, trying to calm himself. He focuses on the rhythmic rise and fall of his chest, feeling the heat of the sun-baked rock beneath his hands, the taste of dust on his tongue. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, he feels it. A presence, subtle but steady, like a current running through his body. The voices grow clearer. Luke.
Who's there?
His eyes shoot open as the air shifts around him. A figure materializes before him like a mirage made of light. The man is tall, clad in dark robes, with sad eyes. Don't be afraid. My name is Anakin Skywalker.
Skywalker?
Nice to meet you, son. Luke, I am your father.
No, that's not... Uncle Owen said... He said my father was...
Dead. He wasn't lying. I don't exactly look alive right now. I died a long time ago. But the Force, it's kept me here, waiting for you.
The Force? That thing old Ben Kenobi has been talking about? You're the voice? You're the one I've been hearing all these years.
Old Ben Kenobi? Never mind, that's not important. Yes, I've been trying to reach you, to guide you, but the connection was weak. Until now.
Why me? Why now?
Because you're strong with the Force, Luke. This is the first time you've ever channeled it, and that allowed me to speak to you. Listen, the galaxy needs you to save it from the Empire.
No. I'm just a farm boy. I don't understand any of this.
You will, Luke. I promise I'll help you. I'll teach you everything I can. But you have to trust me. Luke stares up at him, searching the spectral face for answers. The presence he feels, this calm, steady flow of energy, it's unlike anything he's ever known. He nods his head. As the sun sinks lower on the horizon, Luke sits with his father's ghost, the Force flowing around them like a gentle tide. For the next few years, that rocky plateau becomes their training ground, where Luke can get away from the farm to learn about his new abilities. Here, he's no longer an outcast or a freak, but someone who means something. He closes his eyes, feeling the power flowing through him as Anakin advises him. This is a routine that they've done for many years now, as Anakin guides him through the Force, letting him learn not just how to feel it, but use it. Feel the Force, Luke. It flows through you, through everything. Let it guide you. Not your fear, not your doubt. Trust it. Luke exhales slowly, extending his hand toward the rocks before him. They tremble, hovering inches off the ground. His concentration wavers, and the stones tumble back into the sand. Frustration flares in his chest, but before he can speak, Anakin's voice returns. Anger will only cloud your mind. Try again. For weeks, Luke trains under his father's spectral guidance, honing his connection to the Force. He learns to sense life in the smallest creatures skittering across the dunes, to lift objects heavier than himself, and even to understand the language of the Jawas he often trades with. When not using the Force, he learns to defend himself with the saber he's fashioned from scrap metal. But the most important lessons aren't about power. They're about control, patience, and understanding. One evening, as the twin suns dip below the horizon, bathing the desert in twilight, Anakin's tone shifts, heavy with something unspoken. Luke, there's something I need to tell you. You're not alone. You have a sister. A sister? Where? Who is she? Her name is Leia. She's strong, but her connection to the Force isn't as developed. I've tried to reach out to her as well, but I don't sense her power. You must find her, Luke. Tell her the truth. She's on Alderaan. A few weeks later, Luke departs his home, saying that he found work in a machine shop in Mos Espa. But there he finds a ship that takes him to Alderaan, whose busy streets present a sharp contrast to the desolation of Tatooine. Luke keeps his hood up, weaving through the crowds as he makes his way towards the palace. He manages to leap the wall using the Force, feeling the presence of his sister within the palace. But as he lands in the gardens, the sound attracts guards who chase after him. Luke pulls out his makeshift weapon and knocks the first one aside. He catches the second's baton and twists it aside, but several appear with blasters and fire stun rounds at him. When he wakes up, he finds himself in a prison cell where the guards have thrown him. Hours pass before the sound of footsteps echo down the corridor. Luke looks up as the door creaks open, revealing a young woman with piercing brown eyes and an air of quiet authority.
So, you're the thief they found near the gates. Who are you and why are you here?
I'm no thief. I'm looking for someone. Leia Organa.
How do you know that name?
Because she's my sister.
What are you talking about? That's impossible.
Before Leia can respond, another voice interrupts from the shadows.
He's telling the truth.
Both Luke and Leia turn as an old man in Jedi robes steps into the light. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Ben?
General Kenobi.
I wish to keep this a secret until you are both old enough. Luke Skywalker is your brother, Leia. Now can we please get out of this cell so I can explain everything?
Leia nods and orders the guards to let them go. The trio make their way to Leia's quarters. Once they are alone, Anakin's form appears as well. Obi-Wan leaps back and reaches for his weapon, but Anakin shakes his head. No, please. I'm the one who trained Luke in the Force. Besides, that thing won't work on me.
Anakin, of all the reckless things you've done, this wasn't the plan to raise these children.
You mean my children? Look, I get it. I've made a lot of mistakes, but this is my chance to make things right. It's like the Force wanted me to come back here to see them trained, so the galaxy isn't without hope. Master, I wouldn't be brought back here if the Force didn't have some plan. Obi-Wan blinks and glares at his former apprentice. Part of him wants to dismiss Anakin immediately, reminding him of all his mistakes and the chaos he caused. But he also can't help but find the logic in his argument.
I hate it when you're right. Very well. We can continue their training. At this rate, you're going to end up killing me with this stress.
Love you too, buddy. They inform Bail of their plans, who agrees to let them train just outside the city. Although Luke began his training much earlier, Leia proves to be equally adept and soon catches up with him. It soon becomes clear that she has inherited much of her father's fiery demeanor, as in combat she's far more aggressive, though Obi-Wan and Anakin work to temper it. Meanwhile, Luke's abilities in the Force are like nothing they've ever seen. After his initial difficulties, he begins to harness Force abilities that even Masters struggle to use. This goes beyond combat too, as he learns to communicate with other lifeforms, heal, and use Jedi mind tricks. In lightsaber combat, though, Leia is the better fighter. Under the watchful eye of Anakin and Obi-Wan, the two develop into talented Jedi Knights, who are now worthy of the Jedi Order. But as their training progresses, they also begin to develop different ideologies. Leia, who remains involved in the Rebel Alliance, urges them to use their power to aid the rebellion, while Luke wants to continue training and return to Tatooine to build and remain out of sight. This eventually leads Leia to leave to join the rebellion. For the next few years, Leia becomes a hero in the rebellion. With her skills in the Force, Leia rises to become one of their most important assets, being able to cut through stormtroopers and even match the Empire's best Inquisitors. Over time, she also proves to be just as skilled a commander as she is a Jedi, her tactical abilities allowing her to remain a thorn in the Empire's side. They sabotage Imperial facilities, ambush fleets, and liberate captured worlds. Her connection to the Force, while faint compared to Luke's, still gives her an edge, an uncanny instinct for danger, a reflexive ability to dodge fatal strikes. She becomes a symbol of hope for the Alliance, her reputation growing with each victory. Yet, even in the triumphs, her biggest attack comes soon when she steals the Death Star plans. But here, Leia may have bitten off more than she can chew, as a large task force is sent after her. Meanwhile, on Tatooine, Luke is busy there too as he works to hone his skills. But rather than attack the Empire, he focuses his attention on the issues of criminals and slavery. Many places once dominated by crime and despair now buzz with life. Luke spends his time freeing slaves, driving out criminal gangs, and dealing with crime, becoming a true peacekeeper. But beyond the walls of the towns, Luke also enters negotiations with the denizens beyond, entering talks with the Sand People and the Jawas, trying to secure peace and trade so these groups no longer fight with one another. Despite his efforts to rebuild Tatooine, it isn't without challenges. Criminal syndicates, emboldened by the absence of imperial rule, often attempt to reclaim their foothold. But there are still many towns that are better off thanks to Luke's efforts. Yet, in the quiet moments, Luke's thoughts drift to Leia. He imagines her fighting the Empire, risking everything for a cause he can't fully embrace. His path is different, rooted in the sand and the people of his homeworld. The blackness of space over Tatooine shatters as the Tantive 4 drops out of hyperspace, pursued by an Imperial Star Destroyer. On board, Leia braces against the shaking walls of the ship, clutching the stolen Death Star plans. Commander Organa, we're taking heavy fire. We need to land.
Head for Tatooine. We'll lose them in the atmosphere.
Although she can't explain it, she feels a presence pulling her towards this planet. It was there since Scarif, and she can't shake it off. Rather than fight it, she decides to welcome it and hope it's the Force guiding her. Moments later, the Tantive 4 streaks towards the planet, flames licking its hull. The Star Destroyer looms behind, its cannons firing relentlessly. But as they fire, a shuttle emerges from the hangar and flies off, allowing Leia to depart with the plans. Luke stands outside his homestead, scanning the sky as a fiery streak descends toward the dunes. A small streak breaks off. His heart clenches. The Force whispers danger. Racing to his speeder, he heads towards the landing site. As he crests a dune, he sees a shuttle smoking in the distance, but it's being surrounded by Imperial troops. Blaster fire erupts. Stormtroopers pour out as the outnumbered crew struggles to defend themselves. Luke doesn't hesitate. He grips his lightsaber and closes his eyes, drawing on the Force. The wind whips around him as he leaps into action, using the terrain to his advantage. A group of stormtroopers turns, startled as Luke charges into their ranks, cutting through them as the landing hatch opens once again, revealing a squad of guards and a familiar woman. Leia grabs her lightsaber, stepping into the fray. The remaining defenders fall to her power as she throws them back. But she stops short when she sees their savior.
Luke!
When the dust settles, the Imperials retreat. Leia and Luke stand face to face for the first time in years.
You're here.
I live here. Why are you here? And bringing friends?
I had no choice. These plans, they're the key to defeating the Empire's ultimate weapon.
Then let's get you to safety. I'm glad to see you again. Before they can say more, a voice interrupts.
It's good to see you both. We have much to discuss, but first we must get to safety.
I can handle that. He raises his comlink and begins to speak in a language neither Leia nor Obi-Wan can recognize. Soon after, they hear a rumble in the distance as a sandcrawler appears over the horizon. The Jawas cheering and beckoning Luke over. Luke smiles and motions for them to follow after him. The rebels all look at each other warily, but make their way inside. Once everyone is on board, the sandcrawler begins making its way over to the nearest spaceport to get them transportation. In exchange for helping them, Luke allows the Jawas to pillage the shuttle they left behind for parts. Leia arches a brow but says nothing, impressed by how Luke commands loyalty even from the desert scavengers. Around them, the Jawas are already bartering among themselves in excited chatter, scavenging the remains of the stolen shuttle left behind in exchange for their help. In the meantime, Leia contacts Captain Antilles, who reports the Tantive 4 is totaled. They plan to rendezvous with them in the spaceport so they can get off Tatooine. When the sandcrawler slows, its massive form rolling into the outskirts of Mos Espa, the group disembarks cautiously. The twin suns above bake the streets, and the smell of spice and roasted meat wafts through the air. The group steps off the sandcrawler into the street, immediately blending into the crowd. Luke is quickly recognized by the locals. Several townsfolk approach him, offering nods of respect and quiet greetings. One, an older man with a sun-scarred face, warns them in a low voice of an Imperial battalion approaching the city in search of something. Leia and her men suggest fighting, but Luke shakes his head as the man leads them to the residential area. As they move deeper into the town, Leia takes in the quiet respect the people show Luke. Several locals glance at him from their doorways, offering subtle waves or muted greetings. She notices a woman pressing a bundle of bread into his hands as they pass. Luke accepts it, passing it to one of the hungry rebels trailing behind them.
You've done this?
The people here need help. Always have. I just do what I can. It's not a rebellion, but it's the least I can do.
You've built something here, Luke. A place where people trust you. That's rare.
It might just save our lives.
Their conversation is cut short as a loud voice echoes through the streets.
Search every building. The rebels are here. Find them.
Suddenly, the old man makes a sharp turn and leads them to his own house. He opens up a hidden chamber under the living room and orders them to hide just as several stormtroopers emerge. They can hear the argument from above, followed by the sound of footsteps leaving. The old man opens the door and gives them directions to a house the Imperials have already searched. For the next few days, a game of cat and mouse develops as the small group remains in the shadows, passing from building to building. From the old man, they go to a Weequay arms dealer's shop, a Twi'lek woman's dancing club, and a Trandoshan's tavern. Each one gives their thanks to Luke for some deed he gave them in the past. All the while, the two siblings desperately call for reinforcements. Each time they are nearly discovered, the locals step in to divert the troopers, leading them astray with false directions or harmless chatter. Eventually, they reach the edge of the town square, the rendezvous point where they are supposed to meet Captain Antilles. But the sight awaiting them chills them to the bone. Captain Antilles and his crew are surrounded by stormtroopers, their hands bound. Then the trio feels a dark presence. At first, they think it is an Inquisitor, but the aura is too powerful, and they are nearly suffocated by it. Emperor Palpatine himself marches onto the gallows.
He's here. Why would he come here himself?
Rebels of Tatooine, you have 10 minutes to surrender yourselves, or these men will pay the price for your insolence.
We can't let this happen. What do we do?
Before Luke can respond, both twins feel a sudden familiar warmth in the Force. A voice echoes in their mind, calm and commanding. I will distract him. Free the prisoners. You have more allies than you think. The twins nod at each other and creep out the door, the remaining soldiers getting into position as above the square on the roof of a nearby house, a figure materializes. Bathed in golden sunlight, Anakin Skywalker's ghost appears tangible.
Chancellor, did you want the rebel leader? Well, here he is. No hard feelings, right?
For a moment, there is silence. Even the stormtroopers falter, staring in shock at the spectral figure.
Impossible.
You failed, Sidious. Unless, of course, you want to come up here and chat like old friends.
His eyes catch a glimpse of Anakin's translucence.
You are nothing but a shadow.
With a surge of the dark side, he dissipates Anakin's image into shimmering fragments.
But I'm still real.
From the shadows, Obi-Wan Kenobi leaps into action. His lightsaber ignites a blue arc as he attacks Palpatine, forcing them to leap back. The sudden duel sends a wave of energy rippling through the square, knocking several stormtroopers to the ground. The rebels join the fight, firing blasters as Luke and Leia dart into the fray, cutting down stormtroopers with swift strikes and blaster shots. Within moments, they reach Antilles and his crew, quickly freeing them from their bindings. But the Imperials regroup quickly. More troops pour into the square, overwhelming the resistance. Palpatine fights Obi-Wan with frightening precision, his crimson saber flashing in deadly arcs. Obi-Wan falters under the sheer power of the dark side and is kicked to the ground. Luke and Leia find themselves surrounded, their backs against each other as a fresh wave of stormtroopers advance.
We're outnumbered.
Then we fight to the end.
Luke and Leia hold their ground, ready to face off against them. Then, as if on cue, the tide shifts. From the rooftops, a shrill cacophony of battle cries fills the air. Jawas, armed with scavenged blasters, grenades, and tools, burst into the fray. Their diminutive forms dart across the buildings, firing down on the unsuspecting stormtroopers below. Their cries of Utini echo through the square. From the streets, another battle cry rises, guttural and fearsome. Sand people charge in from the alleyways and outskirts, their gaffy sticks swinging brutally and throwing Imperials aside. The Tusken Raiders tear into the stormtroopers, their ferocity unmatched as they strike from the shadows and retreat before the Imperials can retaliate. As they were hiding, Luke secretly summoned his allies. The townsfolk seize the opportunity. Rocks, tools, and makeshift weapons fly through the air as they rise against the Imperials, throwing the square into chaos. Obi-Wan quickly takes command of these fighters, directing them to join the fight. Above the square, the sound of engines roar through the sky. A squadron of rebel starfighters appear. X-Wings and Y-Wing bombers break through the clouds, their engines screeching as they descend upon the Imperial Star Destroyer looming above Mos Espa. The bombers release their payloads, explosions ripping through the massive vessel's hull. TIE fighters scramble to engage, but the rebels scatter and draw them away as larger rebel ships appear. Back in the square, Emperor Palpatine strides forward, his crimson lightsaber igniting.
Your reign ends here.
You underestimated our power.
What do you know of power? It is I who holds unlimited power.
Palpatine cackles, his free hand crackling with Force lightning. The two leap aside from the explosion, coming at him from opposite directions. Luke kicks sand up from the ground towards Palpatine. It gets everywhere, but it also blinds him temporarily. Leia takes this chance to strike at his side, scoring a blow against his waist. Snarling, Palpatine whirls around to block another attack by Luke, taking a deep breath. With each block, he uses the Force to sense their presence. Each time their attacks clash, it sends sparks flying, and as Palpatine regains his sight, his movements grow faster as he lets the dark energies flow through him. Leia continues to strike at him, darting in from side to side as she tries to strike at openings in his defenses. Luke meanwhile attacks Palpatine head-on, his light energy meeting his own, balancing out the dark side, blocking each attack and giving Leia time to strike. Seeing this strategy, Palpatine decides to bear down on Luke, his attacks growing stronger and more aggressive with each strike. For a moment, he begins to falter and forces Leia to leap in, pushing herself between Luke to block his attacks. As their lightsabers flash, Luke slides into his side and forces him back. This gives Luke the breather he needs, and the two now fully commit to the attack, their strikes synchronized in a deadly dance. Palpatine, though powerful, begins to show cracks in his composure. His strikes become more desperate, his breathing more labored, but he is far from defeated. With a snarl, he raises his hand and unleashes a torrent of Force lightning aimed directly at Leia. She raises her saber to block it, but the sheer power of the attack sends her flying backward into the rubble. Palpatine turns to Luke. Before he can strike, Leia raises her hand outstretched. Drawing her connection to the Force, she hurls debris at the Emperor, forcing him to stumble. Luke seizes this moment, rushing forward with a powerful strike. Palpatine blocks, but the twins press their advantage. their combined strength overwhelming him.
Together. Strike as one.
Luke and Leia exchange a glance, then lunge forward in unison, their lightsabers crossing in a deadly arc. Palpatine, caught off guard, raises his weapon to defend, but it's too late. The twin's blade cut through his defenses and deliver a fatal blow. The Emperor stumbles, his lightsaber falling from his grasp. With a final gasp, his body collapses to the ground, lifeless. With this battle over, they look up as the Star Destroyer falls from the sky. The Jawas all look up and cheer, eager at the prospect of new loot. The Empire is now thrown into chaos with Palpatine's death, allowing Leia to capitalize on this and push the rebels' offensive. This time, she finds Luke by her side, as he lets them use Tatooine as a base. Their presence in Mos Espa and other large cities gives them a place to organize and access to the underworld and a whole new world of allies and opportunities. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.